The issue of so-called conscience rights was thrust into the Alberta election campaign spotlight today. The Wild Rose Party says it would allow marriage commissioners and health professionals in Alberta to refuse to provide services based on their personal beliefs. And that has Progressive Conservative leader Alison Redford concerned.
All Albertans want to live in a place where we respect each other, where we feel safe, where whether you're a woman or a young girl or a new Albertan, you know that you're going to be treated equally.
Joining me now from Edmonton to talk a little bit more about this and the Alberta race is Lorne Gunter. Of course, he's been covering Alberta politics, seems like forever, and he's Sun Media's newest columnist. Lorne, it's great to have you on the program.
Alberta was still a territory when I started
Alberta was still a territory. There you go. Let me ask you about this conscience. People are saying human rights commissions are going out. Conscience complaints courts are coming in. Sketch out this issue for us. It doesn't seem like it's an issue that would actually affect a whole lot of actual people, but it does seem to me like it's a pretty good wedge issue between Wild Rose and the Progressive Conservatives.
It's a very good wedge issue. What it is the notion that if you don't support gay marriage, but you're a marriage commissioner, you don't have to perform same-sex marriages. If you are a nurse and you work in an operating room and you don't support abortion, you don't have to assist with abortions. There are all sorts of people who find themselves in their work, particularly in the public sector, in conflict with their private conscience. And so therefore they'd like to have a law that allows them in those few instances where they're in a conflict of interest with their own personal belief system to be able to step aside and let someone else do the job. And I can see, a case where if you were the only person in the province who could perform a service and it violated your conscience every once in a while to have to perform it for certain people, that the government or the Human Rights Commission might want to step in and say, you need to reconsider this. But if there are plenty of people around, I think it's interesting that the Premier says we have to respect everyone's views, but she's not interested in respecting the views of people who disagree with her. So if you agree with the Premier, if you have her view of human rights, you should be respected. But if you have an alternate view of human rights, if you have a more socially conservative view, there's no need to respect people who have those views. That's basically the summary of what she's saying.
And one of the people who may disagree with her about this is Ted Morton, who, of course, is running, ran against her for leader, now trying to get reelected as a Progressive Conservative. So this is probably going to cause a little bit of rift within the Progressive Conservatives themselves as they're facing the very difficult challenge of trying to overcome this drop in the polls.
Absolutely, and it won't be the first time that there's been a rift. She's created a rift with her somewhat dictatorial management style on a number of issues, notably when she wanted to bring in some very draconian new rules for people who hadn't broken the law of drinking and driving, but had a glass of wine or so at dinner at a restaurant were driving home. She wanted to punish those people by seizing their vehicles, and that created quite a rift in her caucus, too. So this isn't the first time that the Premier has, because she has very rigid ideas, very liberal ideas, and she thinks because she's the boss, she should be able to enforce them on her caucus. It's not the first time she's created a bit of a schism within the Tory ranks.
Now, very liberal ideas. Of course, there are two other parties in Alberta, well, two others sort of that we're paying a great deal of attention to, the Liberals of Alberta, the New Democrats of Alberta. Is there a chance that this issue could actually bring a lot of Liberals and New Democrats over to the PCs in my gosh, we can't have Danielle Smith and the Wild Rose, and that would, I assume, be Alison Redford's fear-mongering, if you will?
Absolutely. I think you're already seeing that. I think you're already seeing support, particularly from the Liberals. I think the New Democrats have always been very comfortable in their skin in Alberta because you have to know what you believe in to be a New Democrat in Alberta. But the Liberals sometimes vacillate. And in this case, they're finding in Alison Redford, I think, someone that they're quite comfortable with and someone who scares them, or at least scares them less than the Wild Rose does. So I think you're already starting to see a shift from the Liberals, away from the Liberals, towards the centrist or slightly left of centre Alison Redford. So this is easily an issue that could accelerate that shift.
This week on the campaign trail for the Premier, she's talked about health care, brought in she's promising to bring in some new health care clinics around the province. Today, it was a promise to give teachers a tax credit. She already sort of was criticized for getting a little too close to the teachers during the election campaign. Give me your sense of how her campaign is finishing, I guess, the halfway point, and how you see Danielle Smith's campaign as they make the turn.
Well, the Premier does seem to be quite desperate. There seems to be a new idea every day, and we were told that wasn't going to happen. And one of the big things that the Conservatives did before they called the election was they passed a record large budget in Alberta, over $41 billion. It's the most per capita spending of any government at any level in Canada, the entire country, more than the Feds, more than Ontario, more than Quebec. And what we were told about that was we needed to have the budget passed before the election was called so Albertans would know everything that the government planned to do. Well, now all of a sudden on Monday we get this promise of new family health centers, and yesterday we get a promise of 120 new or completely renovated schools, all things that have come out of the blue that weren't in the budget. And so I think we're starting to see that the Conservatives are spinning downward, and at the halfway point they're desperately pulling new ideas out of the hat on a daily basis. Whereas I think Wildrose is quite comfortable. I mean, they're rolling out their ideas on the schedule they had planned long before the campaign began. They look comfortable, they look relaxed, and that's actually working to their advantage, because the one big problem I think voters have had with Wildrose is they're not sure they're ready to be the government. Maybe they're ready to be a much larger opposition than they have been for the last few months. Maybe they're ready in 4 years to become the government. But are they ready now? And the fact that the Wildrose and the particular leader Danielle Smith have been very, very calm and collected, and they look like they're on top of their game, is reassuring people that yes, they indeed may be ready to be the government now, sooner than later.
Lorne Gunter in Edmonton tonight. Welcome to the Sun team, Lorne. It's great to have you in the program.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here.